Welcome to this week's video. Something slightly different today, as we're going to be reviewing the Longer LK5 Pro 3D printer. So as most of you know, I don't normally do review videos, but I've been looking for a 3D printer for some time, so I didn't really want to pass this opportunity up. And the reason why I want a 3D printer is to make moulds, basically, so I can cast wood into resin. At the moment is I normally use whatever I can find, and then I try to cut them to the best shape I can and then glue them together and make the moulds that way. Sometimes, not always, but they leak, which means then you lose valuable amount of resin. What I'm kind of hoping to do with a 3D printer is to be able to make bespoke shapes through the CAD, and then just basically come out here, print them out, and then I've got my mould the perfect shape for whatever it is I've turned in wood. So the Longer LK5 is the first 3D printer I've owned, so I've got nothing really to gauge this against. I don't know if it's a good machine, a bad machine at the moment, but for me, as long as it basically does what I want it to do, which is print the shapes that I design, that'll be a win for me. There's also the other side of it in the fact that I'm not making moulds anymore. The design time for most of the moulds I make are basic shapes, so it should be relatively easy. So we'll have a look at some of the features now. Okay, the first one, and important for me, was the size of a print bed. So this can actually print up to 300 by 300 by 400 high. Now that size for me should be quite easily big enough. I mean, this is the kind of normal size of the moulds that I make, and you can see it should be able to print those quite easily. Even if I did have a project that was bigger than the actual print base area, what I could do in CAD is maybe make something, a mould which bolts together, and then I could print it in separate pieces. So the construction is all metal, and then you've got these tie rod supports as well here, which I think is actually a good addition, especially when looking at other models from other manufacturers, because the last thing you want really is a Z axis to go out of alignment, which, also thinking about it, would also mess with the Y alignment as it prints up. But you can adjust these if you need to, if you do find this out of alignment, so that's quite easy to do. We'll just have a quick look at the controls, just turn it on now. So all the controls of a printer are all done through this, which is a 4.3 inch touchscreen display. The menu system I think is quite easy to navigate. So the first one you've got is this, which enables you to move the machine around. So you can move each one by a predetermined amount if you really want to. Get back to the main menu, just press the home button. So then you've got tune, so that allows you all your different settings, like the nozzle temperature, the hotbed temperature, fan speed, and things like that. I haven't actually had to touch any of those yet. Then you've got the leveling option, which is explained in the build video. Filament here, you can select between PLA and ABS, and obviously whatever your settings are, you can then adjust them as well to whatever you want. And then the last one is just about the machine, gives you all your details. Okay, so the bed here apparently has some kind of ceramic coated glass, which makes it easier to remove. I have done some printing on this already, and yes, I can turn around and say the pieces, once cooled, just flick off quite easily. Printing nozzle temperature is adjustable from 190 to 250 degrees Celsius, and the nozzle diameter is 0.4 millimeter. Right, so I just spun the machine around so you can see easily, but this is where obviously the filament comes through, and then just here is a little sensor which detects a filament. I'm led to believe that if you do run out, it can detect that, and then it's got basically like a restart function, that once you've loaded in the new filament, it can just start printing from where it left off. So apparently the maximum print speed is 180 millimeters per second. I've looked at the slicing software which comes with this, and the recommended basic setting is 50 millimeters per second. At the moment I've got no idea at this point how much that can actually be increased above the 50 millimeters per second before it has an effect on the print quality. But as I've said, this is the first machine I've owned, so I've got zero experience at the moment on this point. One of the things I really like about this printer is the offline printing. It comes with a little micro SD card. Basically, once you've put the design through the slicing software, all you need to do is save the G-code file to the card, and then the card is inserted in a little slot down here. Then all you do is select whatever file it is that you want to print, and then basically you just press open, and then you start printing once you're ready. If you do look down the side, however, if you do want to connect your computer to it, you can. There's a little USB connector down there. Out of the box you get a manual. To be honest, it's not that in depth, but certainly usable. But there's also a micro SD card on here. You get a 30-page instruction manual that has everything in it, and there's also an instruction video for assembly and all the basic calibration of a bed. They do recommend when you're calibrating the bed that you use a piece of paper, but to be honest, for the price of a set of feeler gauges, I'd recommend using those as an alternative. I'm not really particularly a fan of using a piece of paper for any kind of calibration purposes. And the gap you're looking for apparently on this machine is 0.1 millimeter. So depending on the paper you're using, say it's 100 GSM, which is 0.12 millimeter, probably close enough. But if you're using 160 GSM, which is 0.18 millimeter, that's nearly twice the gap you need. So apart from the SD card, you also get a little card reader, USB. You get all the tools needed for putting the machine together. You get some test PLA, but to be honest there isn't really enough there, but you could probably print something quite small just to make sure that the printer works. You get a little scraper for getting the prints off the bed, and then there's also a spare filament sensor in there as well too. Okay, so the machine size, you're looking at around about, comfortable around about 600, something like that, by around about 700 with a drum of filament on, and then the machine height comfortably say 700. So probably the most important thing, people are saying, well, how much is this? At the moment on the website this is available for £233.36. In dollars that works out to be $299. So it is quite cold in the workshop at the moment, so the first few prints I've been doing in the house, so we'll just start doing some test prints now. Okay, so we've just moved into the workshop now, just because of the time that it takes to print anything, because I can't have this whirling in the house for hours at a time. So at the moment it's about 18 degrees Celsius in the workshop. Probably overnight it will drop down to about 7, so we'll see what difference that ambient temperature makes. Everything's warmed up now, so we'll just go back and select the file that we want. So that one. Right, so I think print time on this one, just on the basic settings still, is about 9 or 10 hours. So through the software, first thing it prints is this, is what we call a raft. So the idea is that this sticks to the bed, and then what you're printing is printed on top of this, basically just to provide a little bit more adhesion. Obviously what I'm printing here is mould, which is like at the moment 2mm thick, but I might reduce that. If you were to just print that straight on here, as it basically started to cool, it'd probably just spring off that. So I think these are probably quite important to have. You can, through the software, take out that function, and I suppose if it was something with quite a big surface area, you could probably get away with that. I don't know. But for the moment, I'll just keep to the basic settings, and I think that's recommended. Okay, so just going this morning, that's finished now. It took, what was that, 8 hours 46. So it did drop cold last night down to about 1 degrees outside. Alright, so this is a raft, so this should just click off. Okay, so that's warmed up, so we'll just start printing the last piece, which was cone 2. Right, I think this one's got a print time of about 5 hours, so we'll come back and see what that looks like. So this is printing now with an ambient temperature of 7 degrees. Right, so that's finished, that's 4 hours 30. Right, so we've got the first mould printed. I've done it in 3 sections purely because if anything went wrong, because I didn't want to lose a whole lot. If I came to do it again, I would do the entire top section in one go, and then just make a base for it to sit in. Obviously it still needs to split in 2, so I can get this inside. So this has just come out of the oven from drying, so it's a little bit oval now, so I need to go and return this round and true again, and then bring it back, and then we'll get it into a mould. Okay, so that's those prints done. We've got another print to do now. This is for a sphere. So I'm sticking with 2mm thickness for the walls, purely because of the weight of this thing. So I'll just go and start this one. Now this is quite a long print. I think it said almost about 24 hours. This is still at the speed recommended in Cura. I've got no experience of speeding things up or slowing things down, or what effect it might have on the print, but as it's quite a large print, I'm just sticking with the basic settings. What I don't want it to do is to go wrong at some point in the night and then end up wasting a load of the PLA. So we'll come back to this in the morning and see how it's got on. Right, so we are just over 11 hours in to this print now. Now I did say on the next print I'll try and reduce the wall depth of the mould, but this particular mould has got to carry a fair bit of weight, about 4 kilograms, then the resin on top, which will probably be another maybe 1.5, so 5.5 kilograms in weight. So I've kept this one to 2mm, but I must admit I've missed an opportunity here to speed this one up. So this is still on the basic settings at 50mm per second. The one after this I'm going to try, I think it's 80mm per second, but then I'm also increasing the height of each layer. I can't remember off the top of here now, I think it's something like from 0.22 to 0.28, and that has almost half to the print time. So we'll let this one finish and then we'll see what happens with the next one. Okay, so I've just managed to come in now and catch it on it's doing its last bit of a print. So one of the concerns with this bit is obviously, because now we're on a full overhang, is whether it would be able to do this last bit, but I think it's probably only about half an hour left at the most on this, so we'll come back in a bit and see what this looks like. Okay, so there we are, we're all done. Total print time for that was 28 hours 46. So I did this before on one of the other prints, and then I went to get it off, and then there's this massive release of like built up tension energy, which sort of like took me a bit by surprise, but we'll see if we do it this time. No. Okay, so from the outside, very nice. On the inside, I suppose a little bit drop down, I'm not really quite sure what they call that, but as long as it's waterproof for the mould, it will be fine. Okay, so this is the other half of the sphere mould that I'm making. This is about, I think it's 10 hours in, so I think there's about another 15 hours left on this print. You might notice that obviously the colour's changed to white. It's not for a technical reason, it's just the fact that I've run out of grey, or running out of grey. But you can see, I mean, I'm trying to guess how much is left there. So there is a net weight on here, which is obviously 1 kilogram, which is 1 kilogram of filament. But I think the print was about 480 grams, or that's what it said it was. I've weighed this is just over half a kilogram, but I don't know how much the drum weighs. It'd be nice if people could put a gross weight on here, and then I could work out exactly from weighing it how much filament is left on. Just had a thought, actually, what I could do on future rolls is weigh the roll when it's brand new, take the total weight, minus 1 kilogram, that'll give me the weight of the drum. And then every time I weigh it after that, I'll take the weight of the drum off, which will give me how much weight is left of the filament. Okay, so this one's finished now. This print time was just over 25 hours. You may notice there that was supposed to have been taken out when I did the CAD design, because that's going to sit like that, and then the resin gets poured into there. So I'll just drill that out. That's my mistake. But from a quality perspective, this one was printed on the, I suppose, standard minimum settings. This one's done on a slightly lower quality, but it's very difficult to, when you put them side to side, to notice any difference really. Oh yeah, good. Okay, so this print I've just started now, I've increased the speed to, I think it's 80 millimeters per second, and then I've also increased print height as well to 0.28. So we'll see how this one comes out. Right, so we're just about exactly 1 hour in to printing at the moment, and to be honest I can't actually see any difference in quality at the moment, but we'll come back in a bit and just see how it's going. At the moment it's printed the raft, and now it's printing the base, and then it's going to be printing the sides, so we'll come back. Okay, so we just had a power cut, didn't last long, but I've come back out here just to see what would happen. I didn't film it, but what came up on the screen was basically a recovery mode. Just asked you if you wanted to recover the print. So the print had actually stopped about there. It's just like a lump of plastic. All it did was basically move the head back to here, everything heated back up, and then it just carried on printing. So that's quite, you know, a really good feature. Okay, so we're a few layers in now since the power cut. So that rim there is basically where it's picked up printing again. I don't think that's an issue with the X and Y axis zero. I think it's more the Z axis, that when it's picked the print back up, there's a hot nozzle that's almost touched what's already been printed and forced it out the side, because it's on both the inside and the outside, and it's pretty even all the way around, which is why I don't think it's on the X and the Y, but it's not too bad. We'll have a closer look at it once the print's finished. That one, that's print time is 9 hours 34, so we'll look at this. Right, so that's the one which is printed at 0.28 layer height, and then also 80 millimeters per second as a speed. You can see where the power cut happened there, and then obviously where it's carried on printing after. But it's saver print, so I'm not really particularly bothered about that, and as a mould for putting something in, it functions, so as far as I'm concerned that's good enough. But I can't actually really see much in the way of quality difference between that and the lower height print. So yeah, this wall height is, wall width is 1.5 millimeters. The others, first ones I printed were 2. 1.5 seems to be perfectly thick enough for something like this, because all this is going to be is a travel mug. I think I could probably get away with maybe a 1 millimeter wall thickness, but if I have to print another one, I'll probably go 1.25 millimeters and see how that feels, because obviously it does still need to hold its shape, and I don't want it basically warping when it goes in the pressure pot. So yeah. Okay, so that's a resin pour done on this one. I've probably used about, I don't know, 200ml less than I normally would on some kind of homemade cobbled together. I mean, I say homemade, I have homemade it, haven't I? I've printed it, you know, just some mould that I've made out of some kind of random material. But we'll let the air come out of that as much as I can, and then top it up a little bit and then put it in the pressure pot. What I have purchased just is this, which is still PLA. However, it is clear PLA. Obviously that's a mould, wood's going to sit in it. When you start topping up the resin, you'll only just be able to see the level as it comes up, and then on the slower cure resins, even before they go in the pressure pot, it's always good to be able to see any trapped pockets of air, which gives you a chance to move the mould around and release that air before putting it in the pot. So I'm going to do another print now with this, and then see what this looks like when it comes out. Okay, so before I can start that print, I need to take this white PLA out, so I need to do a filament change. In order to do a filament change, you go to filament, and then you go to unload, and then the first thing that's going to do is heat the nozzle up, which will allow the filament to be released. Okay, so that's just hit the 200, so you can just see now the motor winding in reverse. That winds in reverse, you just basically put whatever filament's coming out back onto the spool. Okay, so we've got a new filament, and I'll just try and move the camera around so you can see how it's loaded. Okay, so all you do to load a new filament is I take this out like a guide tube, try and straighten the filament as much as you can, and then through the little hole, and then there is another little hole there, and then press that like that to release, and then that's it, and then push it as far as it will go. And then I just put the little guide tube back in and release that. And then there is another button to press load, and all that does is it starts to wind that new filament through. And you see, once you see the new filament coming through, you just press OK. Right, so the last mould to make for this video is going to be quite a large one. So this is for a pine root. And we are go. Right, so there's no raft being printed on this one, basically because of how big the mould is that I'm making. Is the software was unable to calculate one which didn't go outside of the print area. So I'm kind of hoping, because of how big the base is on this, that I won't need a raft, and that it comes away from the hotbed easily enough, but we'll have to wait and see until it finishes printing. This print is about 30 hours I think, because it is quite big, so we'll come back once it's done. One thing to quickly mention is that the filaments, when the rolls are sort of half used like these, is they need to be kept dry. At the moment I don't know how dry is dry, but a lot of people seem to be making almost like cabinets with heaters in and desiccant and stuff. So I'll have to have a look into that, and if need be, I mean I'm not going to store a lot of PLA or rolls of filaments, maybe 4 or 5. So if they do need to be, if PLA does need to be kept bone dry, what I'll probably have to do is look at making, I don't know, just some kind of little cabinet where desiccant can be kept in the bottom of it. Or something to worth remembering if you are going to purchase a 3D printer. Okay, that's that one complete. The print time for this was just over 30 hours I think for this, so I'll show you what it's for now. Okay, so this is going to be used to cast this in. So no prizes for the fact it's not quite big enough, but the printer's obviously not wide enough to carry on printing all the way up, but it's a good start. The majority of moulds I've had leak before have always gone around where I've created a seal at the bottom, so hopefully all I have to do is top this up with some flexible PVC material, and then that'll be fine, and knowing that at least it's not going to leak from down the bottom, and the chances of leaking from around the sides where I create the seal is pretty slim anyway. Okay, so one of the things I've just purchased is this, which is an enclosure for the printer to go in. The main reason for this is to keep the dust off it, but also at the same time is it will help keep the heat in for when the workshop's not heated but the printer's going. Okay, so the all important question is, this machine has been sent to me for free for review, is knowing I was already in the market for a 3D printer, would I have gone and purchased this? And the answer to that, and I have thought about it, is no, I wouldn't. And the reason for that is I probably wouldn't have believed you could have got a printer that can print of this quality at this size for just over £230, and I actually think it's amazing that you can go out and buy a machine like this for that amount of money, and then literally within a few hours have it set up and be designing and printing whatever it is you want at home. Certainly for my need for wood turning and for making moulds, for the resin casting, it's perfectly adequate for that, and I really do believe it's probably good enough for what most people would want to do starting out in the world of 3D printing. So if you do fancy purchasing this machine, there is a link in the description. It's not an affiliate link. I'm going to make absolutely no money if you go and buy one of these, but I'm pretty confident that you wouldn't be disappointed if you did. So thanks for watching.